Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Now, there wasn't an episode of Mingles with Jingles last week because I'd just gotten back from the Netherlands after spending the best part of 4 days retracing the route taken by 30 Corps during World War II in Operation Market Garden along Highway 69, although it's not called that today, known at the time as Hell's Highway, a double-lane highway between Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem. And I had a great time. The Netherlands is a fantastic country. It turns out they do actually have very good cheese after all. They just keep it all for themselves. The stuff that they export to the UK is shit. But yeah, so that was, amongst many other things that we discovered, the Dutch do actually have very, very good cheese. Also, do you know they're the biggest cheese exporter in the world? I did not know that. They don't export more cheese than any other country, but as a percentage of all the cheese that's produced, they export more of it than any other country in the world. So they're the world's biggest cheese exporter, and they also have the tallest women in the world. So there you go, 2 things you probably didn't know about the Netherlands. They also seem to have a lot of very big ginger cats. I'm not sure why. Because one of our cats, Juicy, she's a Dutch cat, and she's very big, and she's very, very ginger. And I just kept running into big fat ginger Dutch cats all over the place. Climbing over historical monuments in Nijmegen, crossing the road in Eindhoven. It's just big fat ginger cats everywhere. Must be a Dutch thing. I also learned a whole bunch of things while I was over there. Things completely unrelated to cheese or big fat ginger Dutch cats. The Netherlands is absolutely covered in monuments, museums, memorials and graveyards dedicated to World War II. I'm not joking. Seriously, driving along the highway, and when I say highway, I'm talking a 2-lane road, and there's a Commonwealth War grave right next to the road in the middle of the forest. There are Commonwealth War graves, like, everywhere in the Netherlands. And I'm not talking, there are some very big Commonwealth War graves. The one at Oosterbeek, for example, has 1,700 people buried there. But it's not unusual to be driving along the road in the middle of the woods, and suddenly, with no warning whatsoever, right there, with maybe only half a dozen people buried in it, there's a Commonwealth War grave. No idea what the story there was. Maybe 30 Corps were advancing up the road towards Eindhoven, ran into an ambush, a Sherman got knocked out, and the crew were all buried right there by the side of the road. But the graves are immaculately looked after, and you keep running into this sort of thing. One day, we're driving up towards the Grusbeek Heights. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's where the 82nd Airborne drop zones were, to the southeast of Nijmegen, during Operation Market Garden. And we were looking for the Grusbeek Heights in particular because, well, on the opposite side of the fields from the heights is the Reichwald forest. And there could have been any number of tanks hidden in there. So, in order to protect the flank of the advance across the bridge at Nijmegen, 82nd Airborne was given the job of securing the heights. So, we're looking for an area of highlands. But the thing you have to realise is we're in the Netherlands. It's the flattest country in the world. And I'm not joking. Right, the Grusbeek Heights are maybe 50 metres above sea level. So we thought, maybe it's on the other side of this hill. No, that hill is the Grusbeek Heights. The road sort of inclines up a little bit, and there you're on the heights. Yeah, I know, Holland, don't ever change. We love you just the way you are. But anyway, we're driving around, and suddenly I'm like, tank! And Roy slams the brakes on, and we've just driven past a Sherman. And there's the National Liberation Museum is just right there by the side of the road. We had no idea. Fantastic museum, by the way. But we had no idea it was there. We weren't even trying to find it. We were just driving past it on the way to try to find the drop zones of the 82nd Airborne, which we did find, by the way, although we did accidentally stray over the border into Germany at one point. I think we got away with it. A little sneak invasion of the Reich there, completely unplanned. Great museum, by the way, and I did take some video footage of the inside, which we'll be making it into a video at some point in the future. But this is just the sort of thing that kept happening. We'd be driving around trying to find a particular place and then just noticing lots of other things. We went to Oosterbeek, which is just down the Rhine from Arnhem. It's in the 1st Airborne Division's drop zones. It's where General Urquhart got lost for 2 days and ended up spending the night in somebody's loft. Anyway, we were trying to find the Commonwealth War grave in Oosterbeek, where there were over 1,700 Commonwealth and Polish dead buried, as well as a bunch of Dutch nationals who assisted the Allies during the operation. And we stopped at this little cafe by the side of the road. Very nice little place. I can't even remember what we had to eat, but we stopped for lunch. And then on the way back to the car, I said, hang on a second, that's a 17-pounder anti-tank gun. So it was. So we went to take a look, and hang on a second, there's a Sherman. And so it was. And oh look, another museum. We must have driven past it 2 or 3 times trying to find the war graves without even realising. A little place called the Hartenstein War Museum. And it's on the site of what I believe was the Hartenstein Hotel, which during Operation Market Garden in World War II was the headquarters of the commanding officer of the 1st Airborne Division, General Roy Urquhart. And the reason you might drive past it without even noticing is most of it's underground. You wouldn't believe what they have in this place. It is absolutely amazing. And once again, I took a whole bunch of video, which will be making it onto YouTube at some point in the future. So the Netherlands was fantastic, but it always is. I mean, I've been to the Netherlands a bunch of times with the Navy, mostly places like Den Helder. They have a Navy Day thing there, and the Dutch Marines and the Royal Marines always exercise together. And whenever they have their Navy Days, there's always somebody from the Royal Navy gets sent over to show the flag and take part. And so I did that a couple of times, and then I've had a couple of port visits to Amsterdam and Rotterdam. But this was the first time I'd actually been inland in the Netherlands, places like Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem. Arnhem, by the way, it hurts to say this, but it's kind of disappointing. You see, the thing is, I don't know if you've seen the movie, Bridge Too Far. It wasn't filmed in Arnhem. They couldn't film it in Arnhem because Arnhem got flattened. The movie was filmed in a place called Deventer. Again, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Over a completely different river, not the Rhine, but the Issel. And they filmed it because it still had the original 1940s buildings and a bridge that was very, very similar to the John Frost Bridge over the Rhine at Arnhem. It obviously wasn't called the John Frost Bridge in 1944. They have since renamed it in the honour of the commanding officer of the 2nd Parachute Battalion after Operation Market Garden. Can you imagine how confusing that would have been? General Browning, sir. Lieutenant Colonel John Frost here to see you. Jolly good, send it in. Johnny, old boy, how are you doing? Very well, sir, thank you. So, what's this operation you have planned? Well, old boy, I'd like you to take 2nd Battalion and drop at these zones around the town of Arnhem, where you're to advance, and hold the John Frost Bridge. Excuse me, sir, the what bridge? The John Frost Bridge. It's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it, really, sir? Yes, I thought so. No. So, yes, the John Frost Bridge is obviously still there, but they couldn't film it in Arnhem because Arnhem got absolutely flattened during the war. All of the buildings, because the paras were dug in like ticks on a dog's back around the north end of the bridge in the town. They had anti-tank guns sighted in the side streets, so anything coming off that bridge from the southern end just got obliterated. And the Germans did the only thing they could do. They just levelled all of the buildings one by one. First with artillery, and then with Tigers and King Tigers. Yes, they had King Tigers at Arnhem. Not a lot of people know that. And they essentially just cleared out everything on the north end of the bridge for about 3 blocks in every direction. And if you go there today, the bridge is still there, although they did have to rebuild it because after the failure of Market Garden, the Royal Air Force bombed it. But the bridge is there, and when you come over the bridge and you're in Arnhem, it's just traffic. It's just road junctions and lots of very modern new buildings. Just off the bridge and to the left, around about 100 metres down the banks of the Rhine, although technically, since it's in the Netherlands, it's the Neder-Rhine, there is an information centre and a 25-pounder gun sighted overlooking the bridge with a very, very small park dedicated to the memory of a Dutch member of the Jedburgh teams, which were special operations executive infiltration teams that were parachuted in all over Europe to lend support to the resistance, who was caught and shot by the Germans because he wasn't in uniform. But other than that, that's your lot. The site where Lieutenant John Greyburn won his Victoria Cross, as best as I could make out, is now a sort of park bench in the middle of a traffic island. I mean, so if you are planning, I mean, it's a shame, but you know that what happened is what happened. The whole place was flattened. All of the original buildings were completely destroyed during the war, and it's been rebuilt as a modern city. So if you're planning on a historical tour of Operation Market Garden, there's not an awful lot to see in Arnhem itself. Now, if you go a couple of miles downstream to the town of Oosterbeek, there's an amazing amount of things to see. A whole bunch of different Commonwealth war graves. There's the Hartenstein Museum. Oosterbeek's fantastic. The Ter Horst house is still there, although, you know, don't go climbing over the walls and knocking on the door because the family still live there. The Ter Horsts were... Okay, clearly I need to put this into some kind of historical context. Kate Ter Horst was a Dutch woman who lived in Oosterbeek. She was married to a guy called Jan Ter Horst, who was a lawyer, I think, from Rotterdam. And I can't remember his name, but there was a Royal Army Medical Corps captain who approached the house and asked if they could convert it into a regimental aid station when the wounded started coming in after the first day of the operation. Kate Ter Horst said, yep, sure, absolutely, and then personally tended to over 250 wounded British and German soldiers. She was known as the Angel of Arnhem. British Parliament awarded her the Order of the British Empire in recognition and thanks for the aid that she provided to British troops during Operation Market Garden. Unfortunately, her eldest son died in 1947, after the war, when he stepped on an unexploded German anti-tank mine. And she died in 1996 when she was knocked over by a car in the town of Oosterbeek. And a little bit of Kate Ter Horst trivia for you fact fans. In the movie A Bridge Too Far, she was played by the Norwegian actress Liv Ullmann. And Liv Ullmann's grandfather died in the Dachau concentration camp where he'd been sent by the Germans for smuggling Jews out of Norway. It's amazing what you can find out if you just do a little bit of digging. But yeah, the Ter Horst house is still there, although, you know, give them a bit of privacy. Her family still lives there. The St. Elizabeth Hospital is still there. All of these places where wounded British, Polish and even German soldiers were being treated, they're all still there. There's all kinds of things to see and do around Oosterbeek. If you do get the opportunity to visit, I definitely recommend it. Arnhem, unfortunately, you should go. You should see it. You should see the bridge. But there's no real sense of history there, unfortunately, because the place was absolutely flattened during the war, and it's all been rebuilt and is now quite a modern town. But Oosterbeek is amazing. Nijmegen is amazing. There's so much to see and do in Nijmegen. Eindhoven, I just realised I should probably explain for those of you who aren't students of history in general, and World War II in particular, the reason these three towns are important, Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem, three towns in the Netherlands, vitally important towns because they all sat across rivers. The thing about the Netherlands is it's very flat, and there are lots and lots of rivers and canals. And it's not easy to get tanks across rivers and canals unless there are bridges. And Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem all had very, very good bridges and canal bridges across the various different rivers that were going to present extreme obstacles to an armoured corps in an effort to punch its way across Netherlands and into Germany. So, 3 airborne divisions were given the responsibility of securing these bridges. Around Eindhoven, the 101st Airborne. Around Nijmegen, the 82nd Airborne, both American airborne divisions. And around Arnhem, the newly formed British 1st Airborne Division. So the idea was that the airborne divisions would drop onto these towns, seize the bridges, and then sit on them and hold them until 30 Corps could drive up Highway 69 between Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem, and once you're into Arnhem, you've basically crossed the Rhine, and there are no obstacles to driving that armoured corps deeper into Germany. That was the plan. Unfortunately, for a whole bunch of reasons, the plan was complete bollocks. Which wasn't so bad for the 101st Airborne because they were the first ones to be relieved, although they then had the job of securing the highway in the face of German counterattacks across a 25-kilometre stretch of road. No easy task for a single division. And in fact, eventually, what was his name, the commander? General Maxwell Taylor, that was him. commanding officer of the 101st Airborne Division at the time of Market Garden, although he would be relieved by General Anthony McAuliffe, who would go on to earn the nickname Nuts McAuliffe at Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge, when approached by the Germans, told that he was surrounded and he should surrender his division, sent back a reply that basically just said nuts. So he was known as Nuts McAuliffe for the rest of his life, although at the time of Market Garden he was the 101st Airborne Division's Divisional Artillery Commander, but became Deputy Commander of the division halfway through the operation when the Brigadier General, who was the Deputy Commander, died. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The commander of the 101st Airborne Division very wisely decided that it was pointless trying to use a single division to reinforce a 25-kilometre stretch of road, so rather than sitting there and waiting for the Germans to attack, he basically went looking for Germans. Rather than defend, he went on the attack. The 82nd Airborne had a slightly tougher time of it. About 70 kilometres further up the road in Nijmegen, Guards Armoured Division arrived on time, but the rest of 30 Corps was strung out all along the road. And when the Guards Armoured Division did turn up, they found that the bridge hadn't been taken because General Browning, who was the overall commander of the airborne side of the operation, had told General Jim Gavin, commander of the 82nd Airborne, that his priority wasn't taking the bridge, but was instead defending the Grusbig Heights against German counterattack from the Reichwald Forest. So the Guards Armoured Division turned up, and rather than just being able to drive over the bridge and on to Arnhem, they had to then clear the city block by block, and along with the 82nd Airborne, take the bridge. And all of these delays meant that the 1st Airborne Division, up in Arnhem, which was just 11 miles further north from Nijmegen, just couldn't be relieved in time. So the whole operation failed, although Montgomery, Field Marshal Montgomery, whose terrible plan the whole operation was, famously went on to claim that Market Garden had been 90% successful. Yes, he seriously had the balls to say that with a straight face. 90% successful because 90% of the bridges and territory had been captured. Yeah, but if you didn't take that last bridge, you're stuck in the Netherlands. And, of course, the amount of resources that were required for Operation Market Garden meant that Patton's Third Army, down to the south, which was poised to bust into Germany around Aachen, had to stop because the fuel was all required for 30 Corps. So it was a massive failure, which Montgomery went on to claim was 90% successful. Because Montgomery was a massive arsehole. So, did I mention the Sunset March in Nijmegen? I think I might have mentioned it on Facebook or Twitter. Basically, in order to get over, and the bridge at Nijmegen, by the way, is huge. I mean, the River Vaal is 400 metres wide at that point. And it was decided that they were going to send the 82nd Airborne downstream over the river in canvas boats. So they're getting shelled and machine gunned the whole way across, and then once they're over, they had to silence the German positions on the immediate far side of the River Vaal, and then charge 1 kilometre to 2 kilometres further upstream to take the German defences around what is now known as the General Jim Gavin Bridge, the main bridge over Nijmegen, in the flank, while the Guards Armoured Division were pushing across the bridge. Well, I say the Guards Armoured Division were pushing across the bridge. Most of them were still stuck in the town, clearing it block by block. But 5 tanks, that was it. 5 tanks made it over the bridge to link up with the paratroopers on the far side. And one of the tanks was damaged, only had one surviving crew member in it and couldn't do more than 5 miles an hour. Incidentally, the commander of that troop of tanks, I can't remember if he was a lieutenant or a captain at the time, but he was Lord Carrington, who would later on become Margaret Thatcher's foreign secretary. So anyway, they've got 4 operational tanks, and this is at like 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 operational tanks, 1 badly damaged tank, and the survivors of the 82nd Airborne who paddled across the River Vaal. Unfortunately, that's it. That's all you've got. There are still 175 Germans in the bridge work, in the girders of the bridge, who have to be cleared out before you can get infantry or soft-skinned vehicles over the bridge. It's the middle of the night. Arnhem is a further 11 miles up the road. The road is covered by German anti-tank guns. And Frost's 2 para, who only hold the north end of the bridge over the Rhine at Arnhem, do not hold the southern end of the bridge, which is in German hands and has been reinforced. And the Germans are clearing Frost's men out building by building with Tigers and King Tigers and artillery. The tanks that have made it over the bridge, all 4 of them, not counting the one that's damaged, are low on fuel and ammo. And you can't really assault a German division that's dug in around the southern end of the bridge with 4 tanks and half a dozen paratroopers. By morning, it's too late for 2 para. And in fact, by morning, it's too late for the entire 1st Airborne Division, which was basically wiped out during Operation Market Garden. However, today, over the River Vaal in Nijmegen, there is a new bridge which has been constructed a kilometre or so downstream from the General James Gavin Bridge. And this new bridge has been constructed at the site where the 82nd Airborne paddled across in their canvas boats while being shelled and machine gunned in an effort to outflank the German defences at the north end of the bridge further upstream. And this new bridge, every night at sunset, there are a set of lights on this bridge, one for every member of the 82nd Airborne who died making that crossing. And at sunset, every night, the lights come on, one after the other, not all at the same time, but one after the other, at marching pace, from the southern end of the bridge across to the northern end of the bridge. And also, every night at sunset, this is why they call it the Sunset March, a Dutch veteran volunteers to march across the bridge at sunset, keeping time with the lights, to honour the memory of the 48 members of the 82nd Airborne Division who died in 1944 doing the crossing while getting shot at. Every day of the year, a Dutch veteran does this march at sunset. That's why they call it the Sunset March. And on the northern end of the bridge, there's a memorial to the men of the 82nd Airborne Division. And I had the opportunity to actually do the Sunset March myself, in company with a Dutch veteran and his sister. He was called Pete, his sister was called Dina, and I did the Sunset March with them. And I filmed the whole thing, and it was emotional, let me just put it that way. So anyway, the Netherlands. Fantastic place, and I brought nothing back with me but good memories. Well, I say I brought nothing back with me but good memories. I also brought back a little infection that I picked up, I think, in the Airbnb that we were staying in. Which unfortunately means that while I'm undergoing my course of treatment, I'm not able to go to the World of Warships Community Contributors Summit in St. Petersburg this week. So that's a bit of a bummer. What's also a bit of a bummer is that I was supposed to be re-recording my rewritten Captain Jingles voice lines for World of Warships while I was there. That obviously now can't happen, but what we've arranged to do, because I've got a pretty good microphone here, and once I've properly quietened everything, I should be able to record the voice lines myself here at home, and then just zip them all up, stick them on Dropbox and send them a link, and then they can do all the processing and editing themselves. So hopefully this isn't going to delay the introduction of Captain Jingles into World of Warships, although it's not going to be coming in the next patch because we have decided to redo the lines, just to make them, well, better and more jingly. Anyway, my not going to St. Petersburg has been great news for Rita, because I was supposed to be coming back on the 29th, which meant she was going to miss the first day of Tankfest because somebody has to stay at home and look after the cats and the dog. But, yeah, now I can do that and she can enjoy the whole of Tankfest. I'm not going to Tankfest. I mean, I wasn't planning to anyway because I was supposed to be in Russia, but now that I'm not going to be in Russia, I still can't really go to Tankfest because I'm sick. Although, as luck would have it, I'll probably be fine by the time Tankfest is over. But like I said, somebody has to stay at home and look after the pets anyway, so it's all good. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you found it entertaining and hopefully even educational, at least from a historical perspective. But that is it for today. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.